Constitution is a living document. It is a warm, steamy document. It is hot and sweaty. Our bodies had just been left out of this document from the beginning. They were just like, we don't know what to do with this kind of a body.
I'm Jose Solis. Our guest today is Heidi Schreck. If you've been following our show for quite some time, you know how much we love Heidi. She is the star and writer of What the Constitution Means to Me, a play in which she combines memories from her experiences as a 15-year-old constitutional debater when she was in school, as well as her family history, and how she has to cope with the complexity and paradoxes of a document that rules the way in which Americans live. The show first played at the Wild Project in Club Thumb's Summer Works in 2017 before heading to the Berkeley Repertory Theater. We saw it for the first time at the New York Theater Workshop in late 2018, and then it had a limited Broadway run starting in the spring of 2019. The show was nominated for the Tony Award for Best Play, and Heidi was nominated for Best Actress. She was also a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize for Drama. Starting on October 16th, the show is coming to Prime Video. So we took the opportunity to talk to Heidi about a show that means so much to us and that we really hope everyone will be able to see, especially right now. So enjoy the interview.
By young people lately, I really do. I feel like you all are shining a light backwards into the darkness so I can follow you into the future.
Considering that at one point I even joked that we should have a drinking game every time we mentioned your show in our show, it is so strange that we actually have never had you in our show. So finally, welcome to Token Theater Friends, Heidi Schreck. We're so excited to have you. I think we mentioned Constitution every episode, basically, right?
I don't think it's every episode, but it feels like we talk about it pretty frequently, considering because of reasons.
Yeah.
So many reasons.
I'm so excited that this is gonna drop on Amazon, on Prime Video. And I was really curious because I want to hear you talk a little bit about, you wrote the show, you star in the show, but now you've had two different directors kind of like take your material and do something with it. And obviously, Oliver Butler's work on Broadway and off Broadway was amazing. But I want to hear you talk about, did you discover any, did you have any insight about your own show that you yourself wrote based on Oliver and now Marielle Heller's vision for the Prime Video version? Was there anything that you were like, oh, wow, I wrote that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, they're both brilliant directors, so I feel incredibly lucky. And Mari, really sort of respected everything, that Oliver and I had spent many years creating this show together. So she really sort of respected and listened to what we had made together. And I think tried to translate that to film, but in some ways a very simple way so that you could have the experience of what it was like to sit in the audience, but in like a really good seat. I think you and I were talking about this, like maybe a seat that flies around. So you could be in the balcony sometimes and you could be really close. And it was just it was so interesting. She made many choices, which I found, which I loved, but the biggest thing was she lit the audience while I performed, which was horrifying while I was performing because I was not used to seeing people's faces. And of course, all I could see from my vantage point was people hating it. Like the one old man who was so pissed off that his wife brought him, that's who I zeroed in on. And I just became more and more self-conscious and angry as the show went on. I was so grateful in retrospect that she had done that, because when we were in editing and I started, I watched two versions of the show, a matinee and an evening performance where I just watched the audience the whole time. And it was really moving. Like I could feel how people responded when I was on stage, and I could certainly feel, depending on what was going on in the news, and some nights were more emotional than others, but to actually to have close-ups of people listening and connecting with the stories and going through their own, well, what it felt like is watching people sort of go through their own histories, their own stories. That was very moving. I feel like the most experimental version of this film would just be to play the audience for the whole 2 hours and then like listen to the voices.
Was it intentional to have most of the audience reaction shots be of women and younger women? It was a, it was a lot of crying, which I really appreciate because I was also crying at home.
I gave a lot of notes to pull back on the crying. I was like, it's too much crying. It's too much crying. But I think it was intentional. Also, the truth is, I mean, look, in many ways, it was a typical Broadway audience in that it was often older, very white. But it did, especially as the play went on, more and more young people started coming to the show, more and more women. And so I think that the audience shots reflect that. And then also, yeah, those are the people I think who were most exciting to watch, because you could watch them connecting with the show, processing, thinking about it. So I think they were just the most interesting people to watch, probably, as opposed to, like, you know, the occasional old man who'd be like,
You know, I've always been curious, and I always wanted to ask you, because I mean, I already told you that I feel that in many ways the film adaptation, well, the capture, what's the official, what are we calling it? What do we call these?
it's a great
movies?
question, right? I feel like well, it's an important question now, because hopefully there'll be more and more of it, right? Since we can't gather in theaters right now. I think we're calling it a film, and sometimes we call it a live capture. Yeah, I think we can call it either.
Okay, so I'll go with film, because it sounds very pretty.
It sounds more highbrow.
Yeah, so I already told you that I felt like it wasn't until it was a film that I was like, oh wow, this is like marrying Marielle Heller's Diary of a Teenage Girl and Mr. Rogers. And thinking about Mr. Rogers made me realize that I've always wanted to know how you ended up deciding on the costume for the show, which I feel has become in many ways so iconic. Like, I was trying to find something to like match my button, and I was like, well, this shirt has yellow, and it's from the Woodstock Film Festival also. So I was like, I'll go with that. But I was like, how did you decide on what's the official color also of the jacket? How do you decide on that? And then the white shirt underneath?
That's such a good question. So the first costume, so Michael Krass is our costume designer, and his amazing associate, Zoe Allen. And the first thing we tried was to dress me up like I was from the 80s, you know, to wear like the electric blue power suit with the big shoulder pads that I wore, and like do the hair. But it was so extreme, you know what I mean, that it felt like, I don't know, I just wanted it to be simpler. It felt like a different show. Somehow it didn't set you up for what the show was going to become. So I was like, is there a way to like sort of nod to it, maybe in the blazer, but then I can just wear the jeans and like combat boots I wear every day. Also, I felt like it was nice to wear combat boots. It felt like it connected me to the men on the stage. Also, I've been reading this book, which I've read many times now, called Trauma and Recovery, sort of talking about the connection between the PTSD that military personnel deal with, and the PTSD that victims of gender and sexual violence experience, like connecting those two things and talking about those as like symptoms of an inherently violent culture. So something felt good about wearing the combat boots. So Michael Krass went to the Buffalo Exchange in the East Village, and he brought back a bunch of blazers, and there was this J. Crew yellow blazer that was too short in the arms. And he was like, I think this color looks good on you. And I was like, okay, I look a little silly, but that seems okay. I looked silly when I was doing the debates, and we decided we liked the color on me, but also the fact that it's traditionally like an activist color. Like if you look at AOC's posters and things, and it has a long history in activism. I think probably, I want to say like starting with farm workers movements. I'm not exactly sure, and I should know. But anyway, it felt like the right color for the spirit of what we were doing. And now sometimes I'm like, I can't believe I had to wear that freaking blazer for 3 years. I'm so tired of that blazer. Yeah.
Oh my God. So if we want to dress up as Heidi Schreck, we just need to go J. Crew.
Oh, then they eventually, that fell apart. because it was from Buffalo Exchange.
Yeah, of course.
When I went to Broadway, they made me a special, Tricorn Studios made me a Broadway yellow blazer, which was exciting.
Multiple versions of it. You don't get multiple versions of a thing off Broadway.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, since you were the executive producer on the Constitution film, and we're all having these conversations about how do we stream theater? Why can't we stream theater? Is it because it's too expensive? Is it because no one wants to finance it? What are the answers, Heidi? Do you have the answers to?
Yes, those are the answers. It's very expensive to film. It was, I mean, I think there's no reason I can't be upfront. It cost us almost $2 million to film. We filmed 2 performances and then did some pickup shots. We also did we shot some footage that we didn't end up using. So that was part of the reason, but you know, it's just expensive to shoot in a Broadway house because of union rules, which I 100% support. But, and then of course, the camera equipment, all of the huge number of people you need to pull off the shoot, just it all adds up really quickly. And then we made it with Big Beach Films. So like I was one of the producers, the Broadway producers, and then Big Beach, and we made it on spec. We didn't sell it beforehand. And we really didn't, I mean, we suspected that someone would want to buy it. We were very happy when Hamilton sold. We knew it wasn't going to sell for many millions of dollars, but we thought at least maybe now it will sell. And so we took it out, and a couple places were interested. Several places said, we don't do film theater. Our audience doesn't like that, doesn't want to watch it, which fair enough. And then Amazon ended up coming to us with the best offer. But the truth is, and this might be different if you had a big star in the play, I guess, that it basically, these kinds of things, as far as I can tell, sell for like what a variety show or a comedy special would sell for, which isn't a lot of money. So it's hard, it costs a lot of money to make, and it doesn't necessarily sell for a lot of money. Obviously, I think there are ways to hopefully change that. I think you could find ways to make it more cheaply, perhaps, while still paying everyone a good amount. And then maybe if it becomes more popular, I mean, Hamilton certainly demonstrated that people want to watch this. Hopefully my show will. American Utopia, that maybe as the streaming services see that people do care about this material, maybe they'll be willing to pay a little more for it. We just were hoping to break even, and we did break even and then with like a small profit. So that's my answer.
Do you get more money if more of us watch it?
No.
Oh.
But I do think if more of us watch it, they'll be more interested in putting more theater on the service. So I do think that's the incentive for watching it. I mean, aside from it, I'd love for you to watch it.
I think of it almost like there's like this like really great Brene Brown special that's like streaming somewhere, and also it's like that meets A Few Good Men. And it's like one really good women. But I you know, it's like you've spoken before about how you wish that someday your play will be a relic, right? And it's really, I mean, I'm always very happy to see you. We're always very happy to talk to you. And like, I'm so happy to see Constitution all the time. But it's like, we keep meeting every time the country and democracy are on the brink of collapse. And I kind of feel like you're, I don't know, like Captain Planet, and people are like, let's summon Heidi Schreck. And then you show up. and I was hoping you could talk. I was hoping you could talk a little bit about that. You're like, you have become an icon of democracy.
Yes, I'm definitely not an icon of democracy. I do think I mean, it's so interesting because the last time we talked, we did a live talk back at New York Theater Workshop, and that was right around the Kavanaugh hearings, right? So here we are again, as we install yet another, well, I think actually Mayor Pete put it really beautifully, another judicial activist on the court. I think they're the ones putting judicial activists on the court. People, you know, who are going to rule in a way that actually doesn't reflect what the majority of this country wants or feels is right. So I'm sure like both of you, like I find it really challenging to get up and keep going every day. And also sometimes I feel paralyzed. Like, what do I do as a citizen to try, like, what are my obligations? How can I try to move this country forward with the rest of the people who want to move it forward in a humane and better way, I'm being lit right now by my sad lamp. That really helps. I do a half hour of my sad lamp every day, and then just sort of try to keep going. But I guess the thing I find most, look, we're in a terrifying moment. One thing that I gain a little grain of hope from is I do feel like the statistics show that what the majority of the country wants is not what this conservative minority wants. Like, most people support marriage equality. Most people do not want Roe v. Wade overturned. Most people think that police violence is a problem and that Black Lives Matter. Most people are not anti-immigrant. If you look at the actual statistics. So I think the real problem is actually a structural problem. And I think that the Republicans have taken advantage of these structural flaws in our system to like assert the will of a minority that doesn't want what the people want. And of course, in my opinion, and yours, like doesn't want what's best for the country. So I wish, I don't know how that gets solved. Obviously, there are a lot of people who've been working on this for a long time, a lot of activists in terms of like protecting voting rights and, reforming the prison system and thinking about the court. Like, do we need a different process for how the court works? Like, the Constitution doesn't say anything about how many people need to be on it. You don't even have to be a lawyer. Like, do we need to reform this court so that it reflects the will of the people?
We'll find that out in 3 to 6 months.
Well, yeah.
I know. I feel like this moment is, I was telling someone about how, because he was also tired and just wanted to fast forward to November 3rd. And I'm just like, this is not a book we can just flip through the end. Like, we just need to power through this. But speaking of powering through, can I ask you about the babies?
Sure. Yes, I'd love for you to ask me about the babies. So the babies, while the babies mean I haven't slept in a long time, they also give me tremendous energy, I have to say. First of all, they're totally delightful. They're almost 6 months. They're little girls. They have very distinct personalities. They're talking all the time. Not in words, but babbling all the time. And they're really fat. They're very fun to like squeeze like this. I really like holding their thighs like this. And like kissing them and smelling them is as good as my sad lamp. So they give me a lot of energy to keep going.
Oh my God, new baby.
I gave birth to them in a harrowing moment. So
yeah. But Kip was there, right? Like,
oh yeah,
you weren't alone. Yeah.
I was definitely not alone. Kip did so much. In fact, I was also working right up until I gave birth. So he got all their clothes. He figured out all the stuff we needed, the breast pump, all of that kind of like, he sort of learned everything about how you take care of babies. If it hadn't been for him, I would have had no idea what to do. And then they had to be in the NICU for a little while. And so he and I stayed in this little hospital room. He couldn't leave because then he wouldn't be able to come back because of COVID. And he just really took care of all of us. So I'm really thankful. Good male energy.
And speaking of babies, I was so moved the other day when I saw a picture of baby, she wasn't a baby, but it looked like baby Rostelli. And when you were doing the show at the Wild Project, and, apologies for this like metaphysical kind of question, but you've been granted, as a theater maker, you've been granted an opportunity that so many theater makers have. And it's like, you can see almost the passage of time because now you have this captured version of your show. Can you talk a little bit about that? Is it surreal to be like, oh, wow, there were babies and now they're in college?
Yeah, that part is, That part is one of the best things about this whole experience. I think we've all become such a family, and you know, I didn't have kids when I started doing it, and Roselli was 12 when I met her, and really she and her mom sort of took me into their family. So I felt like I got to have like a niece or a, you know, a kind of surrogate daughter, and to like just spend so much time watching her grow up. I just, yeah, I feel like we're part of each other's families, and that's really beautiful. We also have some footage. We did shoot some footage in February when I was pregnant and she was 15, and she looks like a grown woman. I hope maybe someday we'll post that debate, because you can really feel the passage of time there. Like I'm hugely pregnant and she looks like a grown woman, and it's pretty thrilling. And then Thursday is, you know, in college now, starting her second year of college, and that's great too. And we're working together. Like I'm doing some research for a book I'm writing, and so I hired her to do some research with me, and we're writing an article together for Medium. So it's fun to get to like grow up with these amazing young women, or watch and participate in them growing up.
And just to expand on Jose's question, actually, like you weren't a mom before when you wrote the show, and now you're a mom and you get to actually watch yourself do it, which is something that a lot of people get. And so did that open up new aspects of it for you? And if you did it again, would it be like even deeper this time around?
I guess my answer is yes and no. I do. I mean, it's funny because I do, and because I had a chance to do some of it while pregnant, there were certain things that felt more emotional to me, but that may have just been hormones. Also, certainly thinking of like, you know, my great-great-grandmother and then my own children, like thinking of the lineage of that, and it kind of like igniting a feeling in me of like wanting to do whatever I can to make their life better than mine, the way my mom made sure my life was better than hers, and so on. That feeling comes up a lot, and sometimes a little bit of rage. Like, so honestly, sometimes rage that they're actually being born into this moment when it feels like the pull backwards is so ferocious, you know, like that pisses me off. But the truth is, I also felt all those things just spending time with Roselli on Thursday. You know, I felt that thing just being in the presence of these young people. So there's certainly a different texture to the feeling, because it's, you know, my children that I'm raising, but I felt those feelings for them too. I felt rage for them, and I felt like I wanted to fight for them. Yeah. Now, honestly, that was one of the reasons I sort of decided against using any of the pregnant footage in the film. Like there was a version where we're going to weave things together. And I kind of felt like, you know, this isn't part of the thing the play does, is open up right into a bigger story. And I think that's really important. So I think if it becomes about me wanting to fight for my own, you know, the beings that came out of my body, whatever, it's a great story, but it's not large enough, you know what I mean? Whereas I feel like young people who aren't related to me are just as important as my own children. and feeling like I want to feel like the show is addressing that, and not just my own story.
In the show, you say that the Constitution is something like document, right? And in many ways, so it's a play, I would think. So I'm curious, like, when did you know that Constitution was ready, or do you plan to add extra like amendments to Constitution as the years go by?
I mean, I never feel like it's ready, and I'm constantly, like, there's a book version coming out that I'm constantly revising, and it was one of the most terrible things about making the movie was that I had to freeze it in time, which I hate doing. Certainly, if I ever perform it again, I will keep, you know, updating the debate, obviously, but, you know, there's also little places, as you probably know now, in the play where I can kind of bring in whatever's happening that day, and I would absolutely continue to do that. I also discovered, which I guess I should have known, but because the play is going out to such a wider audience, I discovered that there are thousands of people on Facebook furious at me for calling the Constitution a living document. The trailer went up. The trailer, which is pretty, like, it's much more harmless than the show itself. Like, it makes the show than it actually is. But yet all of these conservatives came calling me like an idiot and stupid and a moron and a communist and evil just for the part where I call the Constitution a living document. So I told my husband, like, what are they going to do when they find out I had an abortion? Like, the Constitution is a living document. Is it enough to like attract this sort of hatred? And he was like, oh, they're not going to watch your movie. But I am, I mean, laughing aside, I am bracing myself for that aspect of it. You know, the theater is, attracts largely an audience who thinks the way I do, and it's going to be really interesting when the play is out there for so many people who disagree with me, especially in this moment. And I'm just trying to like get ready a little bit.
Maybe they'll learn a lesson, and maybe you'll change hearts and minds, which is Heidi. Thank you so much for joining us. Would you like to invite our viewers and our listeners to watch What the Constitution Means to Me on Prime Video, and to buy the book when it comes out, and everything you want them to do, and tell them to vote also, because they're going to listen to you?
Yes, absolutely. Please watch What the Constitution Means to Me. It's available this Friday on Amazon Prime. I believe you can either watch it for free by getting a temporary membership, or you can buy it, I think, for a few dollars, which is better than a theater. I'm going to make sure that's true, but I think you can. And the script should be coming out shortly through TCG. So please, if you're interested, that will be available. And it's also a great way to support TCG right now, Theater Communications Group. And please vote. I will see you there. I'm going on the first day. I'm going to wait in line. I'll see you at the voting booth.
Thank you so much, Heidi. I hope to see you soon, and tell the babies I say hi.
I will. Thank you so much. It's great talking with both of you.